Diffusion refers to the passive movement of molecules around a cell or an organism. So diffusion is passive movement of molecules which means no energy required. So if something is passive, it means energy is not required for it to occur. So inside of an organism, what we'll see is molecules are constantly moving around. Unless something is at 273 degrees Celsius below zero, there will be movement of molecules within an organism. So these can either move across a membrane or can just move around different areas within an organism depending on concentration. So that's what we're going to have a look at now. So when we're talking about cells, diffusion is of greatest importance when we're looking at the movement of molecules across a membrane. So if we're to draw in a membrane here, and let's say we have the inside and we have the outside of a cell. Inside and outside is not overly important for the purpose of this demonstration. So let's have a look at, so let's say we have here, I'll draw in some oxygen molecules. So let's say we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So on the outside of the cell we have 8 oxygen molecules, and on the inside of the cell we have 4. Let's add in some carbon dioxide. So 4 on the inside, I'll put in 4 on the outside. Okay. So the important thing to know about, or some of the important points to know about diffusion is, firstly, it doesn't require energy, so it will happen naturally without an energy input. The second thing to know about diffusion is it will happen depending on concentration gradient. So that is, if there are differences in the concentration of molecules in different areas, whether that's across a cell membrane or not, we will see movement to try and regulate that difference and reach equality or equilibrium. So if we look at our example over here on the left hand side, what we can see is we have 1, 2, 3, 4 oxygen molecules on the inside of the cell. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 oxygen molecules on the outside of the cell. So we have a discrepancy. There's double the amount of oxygen outside of the cell than there is inside of the cell. If we look at carbon dioxide, the carbon dioxide has 4 inside and 4 outside. So they're equal. They're happy. There's no concentration gradient. There's no difference. Whereas oxygen, there is a difference. So what's going to happen is oxygen here is going to want to move from outside of the cell to the inside of the cell to try and equal out the amount of oxygen and reach kind of an equilibrium. So we would see here an oxygen molecule there, maybe an oxygen molecule there. We'd see oxygen start moving into the cell. Now, when we get to the stage where, in this scenario, 2 oxygen molecules have moved from outside to inside of the cell, we will start to see diffusion, or this movement, slow down as we reach an equilibrium. So if I draw in our 4 carbon dioxides, remember carbon dioxide had 4 on the outside, 4 on the inside, so they're relatively happy. We're not going to see much diffusion happen, if any at all. Now, we've had our movement of 2 oxygen molecules across our semi-permeable membrane. Oxygen moves straight across or straight through the membrane because it's lipid soluble and small. 4, 5, 6. Okay, so once our 2 oxygen molecules have moved across our membrane, the 4 on the inside has now become 6 oxygen molecules. The 8 on the outside has now become 6 oxygen molecules. Diffusion has taken place, and now we have an equal amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide on the inside and outside of the cell. So this cell will be relatively happy. So what we see in diffusion is molecules will move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. And this movement will depend, or the speed of movement will depend on the concentration gradient we see. So if, for example, we have 4 molecules of oxygen on the outside of the cell and we have 2 on the inside of the cell, this, or diffusion, movement of oxygen across this membrane will not occur as quickly as if we had, for example, 18 oxygen molecules on one side of a membrane compared to 3 on the other side of the membrane. So the steeper the gradient, the greater the discrepancy in concentration, the faster the rate of diffusion that will take place. So as you can see, diffusion is a relatively simple concept. It's a passive process which involves the movement of molecules either across a semi-permeable membrane or just in an area throughout an organism, from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration of that particular molecule.